Hi, I'm Jean Schumacher, and I'm founder of Simply Plant Based, where I have a lot of programs to help you to change your health destiny, including the weight loss advantage, where I've lost over 100 pounds and kept it off, especially without dieting. I like that part. No counting calories, love that. And Dr. Deborah Shapiro and I have set up the Pregnancy Advantage, where we help women to get their bodies pregnant ready, or if you're having trouble conceiving, especially before you go down that in vitro fertilization rabbit hole. And today I have the absolute pleasure and privilege of connecting with Dr. Laurie Marbas, who is double board certified family and lifestyle medicine physician. She's been utilizing food as medicine since 2012. She is co-founder of the Healthy Human Revolution, whose mission is to provide resources that will empower individuals with the knowledge, tools, mindset to adopt and sustain a whole food plant-based diet. So powerful. And she's also the co-founder of plantbasedtelehealth.com with my good friend Anthony. Just love him. And this helps other people to connect, through plant-based telemedicine. So Dr. Marbas, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me here today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, okay, seriously, you've done so many amazing things already. Just share your journey. How did you come to real plant-based living, where it's at? Tell us your story.
Yeah, absolutely. It started in early 2012. I had gotten out of the United States Air Force, where I served for 4 years as a physician, and we love Colorado. So I went to a rural little city, Rifle, Colorado. And if you can imagine the name Rifle, it kind of tells you the story of what type of foods were available. I'll just leave it there. Okay. But, it's fun to always start talks about the journey. It's like, and it all started with the rifle. And people go, what? You're talking to a bunch of vegans and plant-based folks. So anyway, I digress. I have a bit of a weird sense of humor. But anyway, so we were there. We were enjoying life, hiking, lots of outdoor activities, a very active family. And I had a patient come in to see me, and she's like, Dr. Marbas, meat and dairy upset my stomach. What should I do? I was like, oh, just stop eating meat and dairy and come back in 30 days and we'll see how you're doing. We'd introduce foods back, see, kind of a elimination diet, and see what the kind of the culprit was. Didn't think much of it after that. I knew she could eat foods, but it didn't dawn on me that was plants that was left. It really just, I have a pretty thick skull, so it takes a while to get things to penetrate.
2x4, that's for me. You have to get that line, that 2x4 oven. Do I have your attention? Yes.
Exactly. Oh yes, it serves you well, but then sometimes it doesn't. So I just, you gotta go with your strengths. Anyway, so what happened was she came back in 30 days, and of course I had made a note in her chart, that we were going to discuss that. But what was interesting, she actually brought her daughter with her, who was 16 at the time, and pulled her out of school actually to come to her mother's appointment. I was like, uh-oh. And so she goes, you tell Dr. Marbas what you did. I was like, what did she do? I was like, why did you? I was a little bit, she goes, well, I went on the diet with my mom because I wanted to support her. And, we live in this little rural town, and literally you have a Walmart and another grocery store. And so you're making food at home. You're not going out to eat because, well, there's meat and dairy at every location and every meal. And what was interesting, she goes, Dr. Marbas, I started feeling so good. I stopped both my ADD medications by myself, and I don't want to go back on them. And I was like, wow, that's really awesome. She goes, and her mom was like, yeah, well, why was she able to do that? And I was like, I don't know, but that's just the coolest thing I've ever heard. And I was like, what were you eating? She goes, we were eating what you told us. Like, no. I told you what not to eat. What were you eating? And so it was interesting. She said, well, we were eating, fruits and vegetables, and they were talking about beans, and they were talking about whole grains and a variety of other things. I was like, so you were just eating plants? And he's like, science. So finally, their dimmer switch comes up slowly. Like, oh my goodness. And I was like, this is really cool. And she goes, oh my goodness, Dr. Marbas, oh my goodness. I was like, okay, I don't know, but just keep doing what you're doing, but I'll start doing research. And so I literally, right after that appointment, was so excited at the potential of not prescribing children
yes
serious drugs, right? I was like, it just really, like, it was an epiphany of sorts to think, wait a minute, there is something going on here that I obviously was not taught in medical school. And so I Googled plant-based diet and ADD, and I have no idea why the China study came up, but it did. And I was like, that's the book I'm reading. And so I ordered it.
And that's a big one too to read.
I read it in 2 days. You could ask my husband. I literally was sitting and I read it in 2 days. I was like, I would stop. I was like, look at this. They're talking about turning off and on cancer with food. And I was like,
you're like, what? Wait, what? Yes.
Exactly. And that was like, it's in a fun feeling, but at the same time, it's a sinking feeling because I've been practicing for, oh my heavens, several years by that point. And you're just like, what have I done? What if I didn't know? And
did you get any nutritional training at all?
Sure. If you get low in vitamin C, you'll have scurvy. And if you get low in vitamin D, you're rickets. Sure. That's what I got. That's about it.
You learned that one too, right? Because how many cases in your practice have you seen with protein deficiency?
The only time I've seen protein deficiency is in a burn unit or my anorexics that were not eating enough calories, or my elderly that couldn't, they had advanced dementia, because I did full spectrum. I've delivered babies in residency and said 40 was enough. God bless those, like your doctor who does that. But then, I had the oldest, I think my oldest patient was 104, 106, somewhere like that. So you'll see this wide variety, but there's only certain segments of the population going to be at risk for protein deficiency as long as you're consuming enough calories. And so, and that was another thing, right? So I, just learning about the basics of this stuff, I'm like, this just makes such sense. It was just so logical. And I'm very easy. You show me the evidence. I'm like, cool, let's do it. I don't have a problem doing that. I just want to do what's best for my patients. And what ended up happening was, as I was reading about this, thinking to myself, okay, I know where this is heading, because I will not do anything that tell my patient if I'm not doing it myself. And I was like, well, there are other people in my house. We're going to have to figure this out. Like I just had to wrap my brain around the whole concept. And in the meantime, I said, I'm going to start using this with other patients, and just I didn't have a lot to tell them. I could just say, eat plants, don't eat the other animal stuff. And I had a lupus patient come in to see me, and she was younger than I was. She was on 12 different medications, and she was having severe migraines, and that was why she came to see me that day. Being on the western side of Colorado is almost like there's no pediatric ICUs. You are very lucky if you can get a specialist. So primary care, you do a lot, right? You're doing, really inpatient, outpatient, nursing home. You're doing everything, ER, you name it, you do it. And which is kind of like the military. Just this is what you did. That's what family practice does, which is great, but it also stretched you. So, rheumatologists they could see in Denver, or maybe see a rheumatologist in 6 months in, the neighboring large city an hour away. So we ended up having to do quite a bit of that ourselves. And so she was on multiple meds, variety of things, and not all delivered or prescribed to me, but we certainly managed those the best we could. And she was just deteriorating, and it was just really sad to see. And as she was telling me about this, I was like, I think this would be a really good one to try this on. And while she's talking to me, I'm trying to figure out how to deliver this message. And I'm like, is she going to think I'm a nutcase or what? So I was like, she got done. I was like, listen, there's not many other meds or any meds that I can give you. She was already on multiple immune suppressants, high doses of steroids, methotrexate, which is a bit of a chemo drug. And I'm sitting here going, she had already had lupus nephritis. She had all these other things. And she was about 50 pounds overweight. And I said, I'm going to tell you something. I said, we're going to change what's on the end of your fork. Would you be willing to, let me experiment with you? Because I don't know a whole lot. I told her a little bit about the patient before. And she goes, I'll do anything. I was like, okay. So I said, well, before you leave, let's check your CRP, which is a C-reactive protein. It's a marker of inflammation. And hers was 3 times the high normal, so 300% higher than it should be, even on all these medications to suppress that response, and which was actually pretty normal for her. And I said, come back in 2 weeks. I said, just do this. This is all I know. I've got about a week or two of knowledge that I can pass on to you, but this is what I need you to do. She was okay. She came back in 2 weeks, 8 pounds lighter, headaches were gone, and we measured her CRP, and it had dropped 300%. It was just outside of normal. And she felt great. And fast forward 5 months, and she had lost 50 pounds. She was on 7 of 12 meds, including all the lupus medications. And we eventually had lupus antibodies negative, which had always been positive previous. And, what was incredible about that journey is to see someone manage, I mean, she had other issues going on. That's why she was on some other meds, but manage such a devastating chronic disease such as lupus and have such a remarkable response so quickly when these powerful drugs did not. She just continued to decline. And it was at that 2-week point when she came home, came to the appointment, it was a Friday, and I went home, I was like, this is it, we're done. And so I went home. Thank God my husband's a very nice human. And so, when I came in, I literally threw down my purse and I grabbed the garbage and I threw out all the cheese, the dairy, the eggs, the milk, everything was gone. I said, we're going on a plant-based diet today. And he's like, you're still cooking and shopping? He goes, okay. He's like, whatever. And my kids, they're just like, oh Lord, mom's going off another deep end. So I'm always the one to hey, let's go do a Tough Mudder and climb 11 miles up in the mountains of Colorado. They're like, oh God. So this is what they're used to. And, I've been deployed to the Middle East. So they're used to kind of like mom's pushing us to the extremes here. She'll get over it eventually. And what was interesting, I stayed up till 1 a.m. that night going, what am I going to feed my family? I mean, we ate fairly decent. We weren't like the worst of standard American diet, but we certainly had cheese and meat, and we ate a lot of vegetables and things like that because that's how I was raised. We didn't have a lot of money. We ate a lot of bean and potatoes. We had a garden every year. We didn't have a lot of fruit because it was typically more expensive. But we always did have dairy. We had meat 3 or 4 times a week, but that was just because we just got the cheaper
cuts.
The cuts that we could get. And so that was to my benefit, actually, if you think about it now, not having the money to eat the foods of luxury, I suppose. And I guess the luxury of chronic disease. But what was interesting, the kids, I gave them the leeways, like when we go out to eat, you guys can eat what you want, but we're at home. This is what we're doing. And, the kids were raised with the mindset that, when I started medical school, my kids were 5, 3, and 10 months old. And so
how did you do that?
That's a whole nother podcast. But anyway, again, like I said, there's a part of your, thick-skulled human, you can do some things. And if you know beforehand, you may not have tried if, someone that wasn't quite as stubborn or ignorant of their abilities, I suppose. But, that's a whole nother, there's a lot of fun in that story. But now my daughter's graduating medical school. So we didn't, the boys are like, oh, I want no part of it. But my daughter's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, okay, kid. But anyway, so they had raised, that like what was set in front of you is what you ate. We don't have the luxury of time to cook for you what you want. And I certainly don't have the patience for that. So,
yes.
And, we're a super close family. We had a lot of fun, but they, they were really honest with me about a meal. They would either give me thumbs up or thumbs down or like,
Well, that's a standard question in my house. Is this a make again?
Yeah.
Because I'm constantly making things, trying things out. And my husband is just one from that generation. You put food in front of him, he'll eat it,
Right.
And so he had no choice. He went clean. He reversed multiple sclerosis.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, my husband went on to lose 70 pounds. And I didn't have the whole, my thyroid. Yeah, I had been hypothyroid for 15 years at that point. And within the next year or so, my thyroid dosage had to be decreased dramatically. And I didn't understand that was happening. And I ended up developing some side effects from an overdosage of the medication. And I'm fine now, but I'm still on medication, just a much lower dose. But it was an interesting journey to that point.
I actually healed mine.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think I just had too many years of doing what I was doing. And I'm pretty sure, you look back at different things in your life and you're like, oh, there were so many opportunities to do this, Over the next year, the kids started developing taste for plant foods and they would order tofu instead of steak. And I was like, oh, look at that. They're making their
Wow,
own individual.
score
Yeah.
that one. In
Yeah.
your head, you're just doing the Snoopy happy dance.
No, I was doing Snoopy Happy Dance in front of them. So, I was like always encouraging that, educating, watching this. I made them watch every documentary. I shared stories of patients, stories of research, and I just bombarded them, right? And so what ended up happening was, now we switched on a Friday night. We had a quarter of a grass-fed beef in our freezer in our garage. Now that is not something it's easily to get rid of. And I was trying to figure out what to do, like donate it to the animal shelter, do whatever. So we went to church on Sunday. I came back home and the freezer had broke. And that food, it must have happened overnight. And we just didn't realize it. And there was just like, oh gosh, the smell and the liquid that was just running down the driveway. And we're just like, my husband was like, oh my goodness, I swear, if you wouldn't have been with me, I'd have sworn you unplugged that freezer. I was like, I didn't. But I'm telling you right now, that is a sign from God that we're going to let plant-based diet and we're done.
That's it. The universe has spoken.
And things have never been the same since that day. So the freezer broke, the meat got rid of, and then I've not eaten anything since then. I take it back. A month later, I had a small little bite of frozen yogurt that was non-dairy, and I felt like I had the flu for 24 hours. And then I was like, okay, I can't even take little bits of bites. Ever since then, it's just been, here I am.
And one of the things that happened to me, I was tutoring. It was one of those, can you come and tutor my kid? He's got a test. And it was a call, And I was there for a long, long time. And I usually carry my food. And I didn't have enough food with me. And I stopped. I saw this bagel place, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get, as God is my witness, I was just going to get a toasted multigrain bagel. That was it. I promise. And then he says, oh, we've got a new cream cheese. Now, I used to be the cream cheese queen. We've got a new cream cheese. It's got, walnuts and maple syrup and cinnamon and raisins. And I couldn't, the filter was gone. There was nothing. Yep. Oh, yes. And so he put that on there like cream cheese, like a half an inch thick.
Oh, wow.
On both sides. And I ate that like I was like some kind of, I don't know, let out of jail and and so I ate that and I didn't get 10 minutes down the road. And I had to pull my car over because I couldn't drive. I was doubled over in such exquisite pain.
Yeah.
I felt like somebody had taken a samurai sword and was shoving it through my gut.
Right.
I don't know how I did. I got home. I drove home. And I crawled up the stairs, and I'm literally in a fetal position on my bed mooing. And he's like, what's the matter with you? And I'm like, hey, cream cheese. Have I had cream cheese since then?
Nope.
No.
None of that business.
Pain. Oh, my God.
I didn't have so much pain. It was just overwhelming fatigue. I had a mild headache and just achy. Like, it was so bizarre for me because I am never, like, sick. Like I'm going, let's go. Yeah. I don't know. It was just really bizarre. But yeah. And that's where we are. That's how it all started. And then I started using this in my practice and using Dr. McDougall's resources that he had a little bit for physicians, some articles that kind of got me started. And I had some amazing patients and that were willing to take this journey and let me make my mistakes and correct them and help me be better. And, I ended up developing like a 30-page guide. So I'd start my day with looking over my roster of like 25 whatever patients and going, yep, that one. I'd pick out like 3 or 4 that I was going to deliver this message to. And I printed those off and I gave it to them and I'd highlight them with 3 action steps. And that's how we start. And I did that for years and then went on to start a lifestyle medicine clinic. I did a study at our hospital for 30 days with some employees. A good friend of mine worked with our chef. He was a chef himself up in Aspen and he came down to Rifle. And I met Chris Miller, who's also on the plant-based health platform, like almost 10 years ago. And she also lived in Aspen at that time. So Aspen was about an hour and a half from Rifle. And so, yeah, it was just a really amazing opportunity to do something like this in a community that just devoured it and they just loved it. And it was really fun. And there was a point that my youngest Gabriel, he was playing baseball, and I probably had at least half or almost half of the baseball team, at least their parents, plant-based at that time, because it was a small town. Like everybody knew, like, yeah, you're Dr. Marbas's kid, because, and plus my husband's Filipino, so my kids are like the token Asians in the western side of Colorado. And so it was really a really fun time, and Gabe he owned it. He's like, he liked being the different kid. He liked being, the vegan kid. And so that's how we did it. He's like, this is how we are. We're different, and it's cool. Let's keep going. So
my son was, when we started going plant-based, he was a freshman in high school, and then transitioned into, in 10th grade, he was a wrestler, and he was very good and really good in wrestling. And he, between that time, between 9th grade and 10th grade, he went to become 4th in the state in terms of wrestling. And this is because I don't know if you've ever been to a wrestling tournament.
Yes, I have.
Uh-huh.
I have 3 kids that were in all sports, so yes.
Okay. Well, these things just go on forever.
Yeah, it's like swim meets.
You have to be there for 8 o'clock in the morning to weigh in, and then because my son was a heavyweight, they didn't wrestle till like 11 or 12 o'clock. So you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs, and you'd hear the pizza has arrived. Oh, and so all the kids would go and eat the pizza. They would have the pasta with with cheese on top. And so, and I only brought my, first of all, I never gave my kid money because he would just go buy. And so he never had money to go buy the crap, and he only could eat out of the cooler. And so he would, as soon as he wrestled, then he would come back and eat. And, it was all plant-based and stuff like that. So, and then he would go and wrestle. And so as you progress, you're wrestling competitively better people. And so at the end of the day, this is what I would see. His competitors had been eating all day long.
Yep.
All of this stuff. And it was turning their blood into sludge. Okay. Yep. And his wasn't. And one of the things that I would always see, and one of the strategic moves in wrestling, was to get outside of the ring so you could get about 10, 15 seconds to catch your breath. And it's one of the most aerobic activities ever. He'd come off of football and be so out of shape to go wrestle. I mean, he was so out of shape. Coming off of football, you'd think it would be a little bit more. No, he was way out of shape. So anyway, but they loved him in rugby in the spring because he was in really good shape then. But one of the things I would see his competitors do, and intrinsically they would do this, is their chest would be massively heaving, and they would just start putting their arms up over their heads like this, just to stretch their lungs out, just to get more oxygen. Wow. I never saw my son do that.
Interesting.
He was never like out of breath, ever. He just came at you like this machine. I mean, like literally. And he could just take you down. I mean, that was what he was renowned for, was pins in like seconds. I mean, like he could just flip you over and you're done. I mean, that's it. I mean, pin. And so, and he saw that. He saw those changes happening. And, and I couldn't really say to him, because I didn't know as much, as I do now, but I saw his competitors, they were tired. They couldn't catch their breath. They just couldn't perform as well. And I think that gave him such an amazing advantage.
Yes, it did. Yeah, little did you know, your fueling machine.
Game changers, right?
Truly the sense of the word, game changer, yes.
So what changes have you seen in your life?
Well, my practice completely changed, right? And so, at this age, as I just turned 50, I'm training for my first ultra marathon. I've done marathon and
I can't stand you guys. People, honestly, you guys, all this running crap. There's no running for me unless there's a bear involved.
Yeah, fair enough.
Kayaks, biking. Okay, fine, but running. Sorry.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know. For me, it's a place of, I've been running for so long, since my kids were little.
Did you see changes in how you felt after you went running?
I mean, I think so. I think especially at this age, right? So, over the course of 30 years of running, off and on, trying to do more so now than more regularly running. Because I'm running about 30 miles a week at this point. And the interesting thing is I just think how fast and the recovery, so I remember my fastest 10K I was still active duty, I was in Virginia, and I'm thinking to myself, I certainly could probably do that. So that was probably 15 years ago. I don't see any reason why I can't do that now. But the recovery is much faster. Like, I'm not as sore as I used to be. I certainly think I've avoided injury because there's just not the inflammation that was there probably before. But I just, honestly, I don't know what the difference is between myself and the 25-year-old, just because my brain's like, I'm still there, right? But my kids are like, no, Mom, no, not quite. It's like, I've gone running with my youngest, and he's fast. This kid is fast. He just did his first half Ironman in September in really tough weather in Utah. I mean, really rain, wind. He had the worst conditions to do a full half Ironman. I guess that's contradictory, but so a half Ironman. And I don't think that kid could have done it otherwise if he hadn't been, eating and doing what he's been doing. So it makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you have 3 kids.
Yes.
And as mothers, we're continually comparing, like our kids to the peers. How have your kids been doing, like, health-wise, since they've been plant-based? I mean, growing up.
So
how old were they when you went plant-based?
13, 15, and 18. So now they're 26. My daughter's almost 27, 24, and 22. Gabriel used to have these random, like, severe abdominal crampings. Those disappeared. Imagine that. Yeah. And Jonathan is working on, his goal is to break the pull-up record in 24 hours. So he's doing almost 500 pull-ups a day right now. And
ow,
dude, the man, I'm looking at my kids. They're pretty amazing. You're just like, I mean, the pull-up thing, it just blows my mind. It just, Jonathan's like, yeah, that's what I do. I'm like, okay. And Emily, going into medical school, she, it's fun to see where she wants to do family medicine, like her old lady mom, which makes me super proud. She's a really brilliant, amazing, compassionate human being. And she's just, I've been really blessed. I think I grew up in a really tough circumstance and not the kindest of homes. And so I think God knew, is like, Laurie, I'm going to take it easy with you and your kids. I'm like, thank you. I really don't think I could take a troublesome one. And so I was just really fortunate, and a husband that, we've been married almost 28 years. And so we're just been really blessed from that standpoint. It's just, I think, health-wise, we've been really lucky and blessed. And again, we just can't take that for granted, especially now as you see younger families, having, kids. I remember even before going plant-based, families would bring in their 2-year-old for their well check, and they're chowing down on, Cheetos and giving them soda. And I'm just like, what are you doing? And,
please don't even get me started on soda. I mean, because that would be one of the labs that I would do. Is we had these beautiful Vernier meters that you could connect to a pH, sensor, and then you had ORP, oxidation reduction potential. And I would connect those, and we would do a lab on sodas. We would do a lab, and have them bring in bottled water, seltzer, Gatorade. Oh my God, Gatorade just makes me absolutely, I start twitching,
Yeah.
The kids knew better than to bring Gatorade in front of me, because then I would start the lecture.
Oh yeah.
I was sitting.
Well, yeah. I grew up in a home, definitely didn't have a lot of money, which allowed us to eat healthy because the cheaper food was beans and potatoes, and you grew your veggies and all that. But so, my car would break down on a regular basis. It was like we bought $200, 1976 Buick Skylark was my first car. And the battery would always rust up and stuff. And I never remember my stepdad, he would take a bottle of Sprite or 7-Up and pour on the battery, and it would just go, and I was like, look at that's what's doing to the battery. What's it doing inside your stomach, right? And it was just, those images just kind of stick to your head, So I think, those scientific experiments are really, really powerful.
Because the kids after school, after the lab was over, they just look at me with these, like, almost like tear eyes. What do I drink? I'm like, I don't know, apart from coming to my house and getting the water at my house, because, my water is pH balanced and I can change it with the touch of a button to different pH. And I'm like, apart from that, I got nothing for you, because, and you just, and it is, because the kids would only have at the school, they only had two choices, Gatorade or Aquafina. And, that was it. And Aquafina comes in, it's got a pH of about 5.3 and an ORP, an oxidation reduction potential, higher than soda.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Higher than soda. Really?
Wow.
And people are drinking it thinking, I'm doing something healthy, I'm drinking water. And it's like, you're drinking something that's 100 times more acidic than what you're supposed to be consuming.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And if you look at soda, Gatorade comes in about 10,000 times more acidic. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And then soda is about between 10 and 100,000 times, because the pH scale is a logarithmic scale. So it's a factor of 10. So going from 7 to 6 is not just a factor of 1, it's a power of 10. 7 to 5 is not a factor of 2 or 20, it's a factor of 100.
Wow.
7 to 4 is 1,000. 7 to 3 is 10,000. 7 to 2 is 100,000. So,
Jeez.
you start to look at this stuff going, what? What are we doing? And why? And this is one of the reasons why, we're seeing so much osteoporosis. Because literally you've got to alkalize this stuff that's coming in that's so acid in your body. You've got to alkalize it, and you're taking it from your chemical storehouse, your skeleton, your muscles, your blood.
Right. And then the foods we're eating aren't helping either. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why we're having these conversations, aren't we?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, tell me, how did you get involved with the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention?
Sure. So, interesting story. I received a phone call from Dr. Scott Stoll in, I think it was mid or early December of 2017, and another gentleman, Dan Purgis, and he's like, Laurie, we want you to help us start a medical journal. I was like, have either of you started a medical journal? And they're like, no. I was like, okay. But they understood I had a little bit of tenacity and get things done and kind of stuff going. And I was like, okay. He goes, and so there was a 3-way conversation one evening, and that's how it started. And so literally that journal was developed with lots of research, speaking to tons of people. Nobody could I find that had started a medical journal, and developed the website. I took like Post-its and I was putting different ideas as they'd come to me, and that was like on my hallway. I would like reorganize things, and thinking about who are going to be our first people that we're going to put on our editorial board, our peer reviewers, just the rules, the regulations, the logo, the website, all of that. Over the course of about 9 months, we launched, and I first looked at commercial publishers, and they rejected us. Wiley dangled some carrots in front of us for a little bit, but then they said, yeah. And I was like, that's fine. I said, we can self-publish. And Dan and Scott were like, are you sure? I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just find a way. And so I found a way to self-publish, and we're using a group from Canada that help us do that. It's a free platform that we do. And so the interesting thing with the journal is that we don't charge anything to be published, and we certainly don't charge anyone to read it. And so this is knowledge that needs to be shared. And so it went from there. And we launched September at the Plantation Project 2018. Dr. Kim Williams is our editor-in-chief. And
well, you picked a good one there.
Yes. What an honor and amazing time to work with Dr. Williams. And I did that until just recently. So in October, I stepped down, and we brought in an amazing young PhD student, Katie Adair. So now she's the new managing editor of the journal, and I'm just kind of there in the shadows as she needs me, but it was all set up, the systems. We've had multiple publications now.
Well, clearly they picked the right person.
Yeah. But I got it to where I needed it to go, but then plant-based telehealth started taking off, and I'm super busy running a business, running multiple businesses, working a regular job. It's just, there's a lot going on in my life right now. And so, really? Yes. And so, I stepped back and Katie's taking over and she's done a fabulous job. She's incredibly gifted and super duper smart. And I can't wait to see where it goes. She's definitely got the talents and the capabilities to take it to the next level. And I'm just, the baby's growing. So there you go.
And how proud you must be.
Yeah, it was a real honor to be a part of that. You know, not a lot of people can say we actually built a journal that we, you know, and we're going into the 4th year. Like,
it's like Noah with the ark, you know, wow, this is impressive.
There were many sleepless nights trying to figure out how to do that. And especially when the publishing component, you know, because then there's just so much involved with that. And the world of academic publishing, there's just so much that I learned on the business side of things. And it's a $10 billion a year industry, which is incredible. Because if you think about it, your tax dollars are supporting the majority, if not all, of the research that you hear about, but they're behind paywalls because so you have a commercial publisher who, you know, partners with different organizations, be it the American College of Cardiology or the AMA or whatever,
Right.
And you have amazing researchers and clinicians who are doing this amazing research. They do all the work. They do all the applying for, you know, NIH grants and all these things. They do all the review for free. Sometimes they pay to actually apply to, you know, to be published, and there's no guarantee that they'll get published. So there's all this money, but it's going in one direction to the commercial publisher. And not only that, you have to pay, like if there's an article that I want to read, even if it was published 5 years ago, that I may have to pay anywhere from $30 to $90 just to have access to for a period of time.
Yes.
And we did not want to have that. So we are an anomaly in the world of, you know, academic publishing. And we're focused on, you know, lifestyle medicine, where we really want to show, you know, where can we reverse and prevent disease. And that was been from the beginning. And it's been a really interesting journey to learn about that and just meet some amazing and talented people. We have well over 70 reviewers. We have editors, and, you know, our editorial board includes Dr. Warnish, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. McDougall, Dr. Furman, Dr. Campbell, Mike Greger, you name it. These incredible people are a part of, I mean, we have a former Surgeon General on our board. So, I mean, these are incredible people that I don't think I'd ever had the opportunity to meet otherwise. And so it was a real amazing opportunity in my life. But I think it prepared me to be digging my heels and grow this plant-based telehealth, which is growing very rapidly. So it's like, holy moly, what have we gotten ourselves into? And so that's the next big thing.
It's huge. Well,
Yeah.
And perfect timing, you know.
Yeah,
for
we
COVID
launched
and everything else.
Yeah, it took us a year, actually, about 15 months, because I had been doing telemedicine. I had worked with Dr. Furman. I was his medical director in Florida at a clinic he had there for about 6 months in Boca Raton. And the clinic closed when our investors pulled out. But I had 50 people that came through. It was incredible. They'd stay with us for extended periods of time, incredible results. But after that closed, I was like, well, until I find my next, you know, brick and mortar job, telemedicine thing looks pretty cool. And so I did that, and then the journal came along. And so I was busy with doing, you know, just acute telemedicine care. It wasn't my joy, but what was happening was I was getting patients who were calling in for maybe a cold or sniffles and UTI symptoms or whatever skin condition. And I would see that they had diabetes or high blood pressure or whatever. And I was like, by the way, I was wondering, Dave, you ever heard of a plant-based diet? And, you know, and people started listening, and they would start making appointments for follow-ups, like a regular practice, which was not where that platform was set up for, at least at that point. And I had some interesting upper management, and this is a very large national telemedicine company. Like, you will have heard about them, but they're like, you know, Laurie, it's really interesting. We're looking at data, and your data seems very skewed because we're looking at data to do marketing and different things. And they're like, did you really take an A1C from 11 to 6 in 3 months? I was like, yeah. And there's a lot more of those. He goes like, what did you do? Were they working with another doctor? I was like, first of all, that's insulting. Number two, no, I fed them plants. And they're just like, what? And so I won. And each year they awarded quality awards to physicians, and I won them, the 2 years I was there. And they allowed us to come and learn about the company and their headquarters. And it was all really fascinating. And I'm telling Anthony this, who's been a dear friend of mine for years. And he's like, Laurie, we should start our own telemedicine company. I was like, you're a nut. And I was like, no. And he just kept at it. So then I had to get in a position where I could actually start a telemedicine company. It means that I can't work for a telemedicine company. So now I'm working part-time. I was doing full-time, but I had to pull back to part-time because plant-based telehealth is taking off. A utilization management company in Nashville. They're amazing people, super supportive of what I'm doing, very flexible with me. I couldn't ask for a better group of people to work with. And so that's been a blessing. But the plant-based telehealth, it just continues, the demand continues to grow, and we've barely tapped into our network of, trying to get the word out. But Chef AJ has been amazing. Cyrus and Robbie from Mastering Diabetes have been incredible. We've just had so much support. People like you, Mama Says, they're all super, it's just amazing. Because we have Dr. Clapper on with us now. Chris joined us. Right? Yeah. I mean, like, really, what more credentials do you need than Dr. Clapper? And it really cracks me up because I'm licensed right now in 48 states. I have 2 more states to go and the DC, and I'll have the entire country. And I'm just waiting for those to be issued because I've done all the work. And what was interesting is people make an appointment with me and they're like, well, I couldn't see Dr. Clapper, so I guess I'll see you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to take you.
Yeah, it always cracks me up. And, I'm not offended in any sense whatsoever, but I was like, well, I would see Dr. Clapper over me too. It's all good. But, it was just really funny. And it's just been really fun. The reason I felt compelled to do the work to get all the medical license, because it's not cheap, nor is it's very time consuming. I've literally been fingerprinted more than most convicts because you have to be fingerprinted for background checks for every one of them. And each one has their own tests and different stuff that you have to do, and cost is different. But as co-founders, Anthony and I did this together, and we launched in March just by coincidence. I just felt like we needed to have presence, at least one of us, at least one physician, until we started bringing on more doctors, which we are bringing on 2 more by January, February timeframe. And I just feel like we need to be able to say, we offer help to this entire globe. And if I can cover the United States.
You're going for Canada too, right?
Well, we've had some interactions, but I see Canadian folks. We just can't prescribe, but we can at least give them guidance. I have patients in Ireland and Egypt and Portugal, Mexico. I know Dr. Kay's had Russia, UK, Australia. So we've seen patients from all over the globe, and we're 9 months old. And it's just, we're at our capacity. I'm booked out until 3rd week of January. I see anywhere from 30 to 40 patients a week on a part-time basis right now. And I'm like, so there's business stuff. And poor Anthony, he's doing a lot of work. He's incredible. He's an amazing human. Mm-hmm.
He's amazing. Just love him. His story is so powerful.
Oh, yeah. Losing 160 pounds like 15 years ago. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I was like, what did you do? And that's actually how we met, was through Dr. Furman. I've just looked back at my life, and it all started with one patient saying her stomach hurt from meat and dairy in a little town called Rifle, Colorado. And I think, if that interaction would have never happened, where would my life been? Like, literally every decision, everything I'm doing in my life is built around plants. Healthy Human Revolution, plant-based telehealth.
Yeah, talk to us about that, because that was my next question.
Yeah, so Healthy Human Revolution started in 2018. So Anthony founded plant-based telehealth. We're serial company starters, I guess. Jason Cohen, who also lost 120 pounds, went on to run like a 100-mile race and up in Leadville, Colorado. I guess there's something about the mountains of Colorado.
This running.
Yeah, I'm the old lady though. I am the old one of the crew. He's Jason's in his 30s, and Anthony's he's a couple years behind me. But what's interesting was we really wanted to, when I look to patients, I can give them all the education. This is why I don't think, these government-sponsored educational give the information, they just don't work. The campaigns just don't work, because people, they look at the information, but they're like, this isn't going to change behavior. On a few people will, but the majority not. And that's been my experience of 2 decades as a physician. And what was interesting was we are like, we need to do the how-to. So my podcast I've had for 4 years, and that's why I started it, because I said, I want to know, why were you able to lose 200 pounds? And I can't even get my other patient just to include more vegetables today. Like, what is it? What do I need to do as a mediator of these lifestyle changes? What can I do? Like, what's the magic key? What's the magic potion? The words, I don't care what it is, what I'll have to do. I've been known to make pinky promises with patients to get them to do things. I mean, I literally will do whatever. And what was interesting, we decided to do the Healthy Human Revolution because literally this is what we need, right? We need a revolution of our health. And so what we've done is over the course of the first year, we started really working on courses and blogs and information and building out the podcast even further. And then Anthony and I started Plant-Based Telehealth, and Jason was getting involved with other stuff. And so they stepped back a little bit and my boys came on board. So my two sons, Gabriel and Jonathan, run it with me now. They're actually, myself and my two boys are the majority owners now, and we're building it out even further. So everything in there, from how to save time, in the kitchen, because I will survey my patients and go, what are your biggest pain points? What do you need to know? What can I do to make this easier for you? And we talk to them how to do it, right? We talk about mindful eating. We talk about what to do when you go to someone's home. We talk about travel. I did a mission trip in Uganda and did rural Uganda for 2 weeks, literally saw 500 patients in 4 days, and I stuck to a whole food plant-based diet. There was no running water, no electricity. And I was like, if I can do this in rural Uganda, you can do this in New York. You can do this in Rifle, Colorado. You can do this anywhere. Now, does it take a little bit different preparation than some of the larger cities? Sure. But that really is the main thing. And we have a course on literally how to transition to a plant-based diet over the course of 7 days. Literally everything they would need to know to do this successfully. And honestly, if they just did that, they would have everything they need to know. Everything. I have a course for kids. I have a kids coloring cookbook. I have superhero vegetables that I actually developed. There's 8 of them. There's Brock the Rock broccoli and all these amazing characters.
I love it.
So those are the things that I'm trying to do to help patients. Like, if they've given me an excuse, and I've heard all of them, I haven't heard of a new excuse in years, because I'm pretty sure those first 4 or 5 years I heard everything that could possibly conceivably be the problem. And that could be another podcast. There's all the excuses and why they're not an excuse. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I have a film major that Gabe's the film guy. He's amazing. And Jonathan graduated with a marketing degree. So I'm like, what more do you need? Someone to film and edit, and the other one to help market it, and I pull the content. And
now you have the doctor. Your daughter's going.
And I have the doctor. Yeah, we'll see if she wants to take over.
You got the whole thing.
I really, I've done my share, guys. I birthed a I birthed a plant-based doctor. Come on. So yeah, that's where we're at. And we will build this out. We want to bring on other experts and help them build courses and help them, show their presence. And we're working with a bunch of other folks right now, like John Pierre, Chloe Stein, Katie Adair. She's the one that took over the journal, my location, but she was also a D1 national collegiate pole vaulter. And her own story about plant-based eating and how she got to nationals was the year that she went plant-based and had no fractures for the first time in all of her career. And so, these are just, these are incredible human beings. And so, yeah, that's where we're at, and we're just going to keep plugging away. So it's, like I said, I just feel like it's our duty to share this information and do the best we can. There's some amazing resources for the information, but there's not a whole lot on the actual, besides recipes. Okay, how do I do this in my day-to-day life as a busy mom, as a busy dad, as a busy college student, or someone with no money? I've done my own challenges on how to eat a whole food plant-based diet on $7 a day. And I showed my receipts, because that's about what you get with SNAP or, with the food stamps. You can do it. It's a little bit boring, but you can do it. And yeah, that's what we're doing. So I'm compelled.
Well, Dr. Marbas, thank you so much for sharing your amazing inspirational story. Honestly, You are a breath of fresh air, and thank you for doing everything that you're doing to help support this movement, because it's nice to see women, first of all, in doing this, and all the things that you've done to help lay the foundation and the groundwork. So thank you very much for all
Oh,
the
thank
people that
you.
can't say it to you directly.
Oh,
So,
it was my pleasure. I just, thank you for sharing your platform to let us share our story. And I hope if there's anything we can do to help you, we can do the same.